Shalom and welcome to Planet Israel. Today we'll visit Tzfat, the city of the Kabbalists, a city of ancient beauty and majestic scenery, synagogues, art galleries, and ancient alleys that contain hidden secrets of a unique and mystical place. So come along! The holy city of Tzfat is located in the Galil, the northern part of the land of Israel. This ancient city was built on top of a high mountain, over 850 meters above sea level. There are several explanations given for the name Tzfat, each emphasizing another characteristic of the city. Some say that the source of the name Tzfat stems from the Hebrew word tatzpit, panorama, relating to the spectacular panoramic view of the Galilee mountains and the Kinneret Sea seen from here. Another explanation connects the name of the city to the longing for Mashiach, the Messiah, who according to the Zohar, the major Kabbalistic work, will first appear in the Galil. In Hebrew, the word longing, tzipiyah, and the name of the city Tzfat have the same root. We'll begin our tour of Tzfat by climbing up to the Metzudah, the Crusader fortress located at the highest point in the city. This fortress is located at the peak of the mountain, 890 meters above sea level. This strategic point had a lot to do with the historic development of Tzfat. Almost 2,000 years ago, at this location, Yosef ben Matityahu, the commander of the Jewish forces in the Galilee, built a fortress to serve as a defense post during the Great Revolt against the Romans in the year 66. But what we can see here today is the remnants of a Crusader fortress that was built approximately 1,000 years ago. This is the largest Crusader fortress built in Israel. This fortress has seen many battles, but its destruction was actually caused by the severe earthquakes that hit this area throughout the years. From here, we will go down for a tour of Tzfat Old City.
Tzfat is not really mentioned in the Talmud, and its period of greatness was not until the 16th century. The Jews came to Tzfat because it was a fortified place. It was the only place that was protected from marauding bands of Bedouin Arabs that populated the country, and also because of the holiness of the tombs that existed in the area of Tzfat. Rabbi Akiva, Yonatan ben Uzziel, Hillel, Shammai, the tombs of these great men. And because of that, the Jewish population centered in Tzfat in order to be able to benefit from its holiness and beauty.
During the 16th century, Tzfat became the spiritual center of the Jewish world. It attracted Kabbalists, poets, and Torah scholars who created a special atmosphere of mystique, holiness, and mystery in the city. One of the main reasons for Tzfat's centrality during that period was the development of the learning of Kabbalah, the hidden teachings of Torah and the Jewish mystical tradition. This is the Ari synagogue, named after Rabbi Isaac Luria, a great Kabbalist and the figure that best symbolizes Tzfat and the teachings of Kabbalah. The Ari made a living as a trader of spices, but most of his time he spent learning and teaching Kabbalah to the many students that congregated around him. The Ari was born in Jerusalem in 1534. At a young age, he moved to Egypt, where he began to study the secrets of Kabbalah. Legend has it that at the age of 35, Eliyahu Nevi, Elijah the prophet, revealed himself to the Ari and told them he should move to Tzfat in order to teach and spread these hidden teachings. The Ari moved to Tzfat, but 3 years later he passed away. Despite his young age, his teachings made a tremendous impact. He also introduced many customs that became accepted throughout the Jewish world. One example is the Kabbalat Shabbat service, the welcoming of the Shabbat in a ceremony of song and prayer. What is Kabbalah exactly? It is difficult to explain in a nutshell, but generally speaking, it relates to the mystical aspects of Judaism that explain the meaning of God and delve into the secrets of creation and the workings of the physical and spiritual realities. The most essential book of Kabbalah is the Zohar, composed by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai during the 2nd century. The Zohar is the basis for the entire teachings of Kabbalah, and the sages always warned that those who aren't old enough or those who haven't yet learned the revealed teachings of the Torah should distance themselves from the study of the Zohar and Kabbalah, for it can be dangerous and could cause loss of sanity or even death. Today, some Jewish authorities hold that we have reached a special time in history in which the hidden teachings of the Torah could be taught to even unlearned people. But the majority of the religious Jewish world still holds that one must learn much of the basics and the revealed before delving into the hidden.
Kabbalah, which is the mystical side of Judaism, is probably the most misunderstood and difficult to define area of Jewish life. Basically, Kabbalah sees the world differently than the reality that we look at it with our eyes. It sees it in terms of spheres of holiness, in terms of sparks of God, so to speak, and of creation that still exist in the world, and that these sparks have to be gathered up, and once they're gathered up, and in each and every one of us there is such a spark, once they're gathered up, then there's a great flame of holiness which lights the world and brings people to their goal and destiny, to their soul. And therefore, the Kabbalists were secret in terms of teaching Kabbalah and in terms of practicing Kabbalah, granting amulets, etc. But nevertheless, their influence was so great that Kabbalah became an integral part of Jewish life since the 16th century. And today it is one of the dominant factors, certainly in Hasidut, but in other areas of Jewish life as well.
The Ari's teachings, which became known worldwide, emphasize the concept of God's seeming self-limitation, allowing free will to exist, and the concept of the release of sparks of spirituality and the necessity to collect those sparks. His teachings also place great emphasis on the ideas of reincarnation, imminent messianism, spiritual revelations bordering on prophecy, and the inherent vast powers of holy men.
Rabbi Isaac Luria, the godly Rabbi Isaac, who was called the Ari, the Lion of Judah, was one of the most famous people in Jewish history and one of the most influential people in Jewish history. His exposition of Kabbalah spread throughout the Jewish world like wildfire. In fact, we cannot imagine a Hasidic movement, for instance, without the basis of the Lurianic Kabbalah, which he taught and originated here in Tzfat. The Ari himself died at a very early age. He was only in Tzfat for a very short period of time. However, he assembled around him a group of holy young people who disseminated his message and were his disciples throughout the Jewish world. It is said that the Ari, by looking at a person, could tell what sins that person had committed. As you can well imagine, my friends, not many people wanted to face him because nobody wants to be exposed in such a direct fashion.
Our next stop is the Ari's mikveh, or spiritual bath, which is located next to Tzfat's ancient cemetery. This is the Ari mikveh, or spiritual bath. It receives its water from a natural spring that flows through the rocks of the ancient hills of Tzfat. These waters are ice cold, and special qualities and remedies are attributed to these freezing waters. The Ari explained that immersing in the mikveh helps achieve spiritual purification and assists in reaching higher and higher levels of spiritual development. The Holy Ari passed away when he was 38 years old and was buried here in Tzfat. As we mentioned, one of the customs that the Ari introduced to the Jewish world was the ceremony of Kabbalat Shabbat, the welcoming in of the Shabbat. Every Friday evening, the Ari and his students would congregate, wrapped in white robes, in the forest at the outskirts of the city, to welcome the Shabbat, the holiest day of the year. With a view of the sunset, they would recite King David's Psalms and would sing the famous poem, Lecha, Dodi, that was composed here in Tzfat by the Kabbalist Rav Shlomo Halevi Elkabetz, who is also buried here. Tzfat is famous for the production of candles, an industry which prospered here because of the many synagogues that use them. This factory manufactures candles in all shapes and colors, made of natural beeswax. The process of candle making begins with the natural beehives. After these are cleaned and processed, what we get is beeswax, and this is melted down to make the candles. So after the candle is made, we color it with colored beeswax. I dip it in to the blue, and then I hold it the other way and hope this is dry. It's dry. I dip it into the red. So it's hot, it makes the candle soft. And now I braid it. I start from this end, and you can just braid it because it's still hot. You see, just simply like this, left over right, right over left, left and right, and left and right. And you have a beautiful straight candle. Kabbalistic teachings explain that there is a mystical significance to the light of candles, and that the soul itself is called the candle of God. Just like the candle infuses light to the world, the soul infuses spirituality into the body, without which the world would be a dark place. The Kabbalists also explain the great significance of lighting the Shabbat candles by Jewish women to usher in the holiest day and bring good into the world. This is the synagogue of Rabbi Joseph Karo, who was the chief rabbi of Tzfat and the author of the Shulchan Aruch, the most relied upon and essential book of Jewish law. The synagogue contains 3 ancient Torah scrolls. One of them is 500 years old and was brought here from Spain. Rabbi Joseph Karo arrived in Tzfat in the early 1500s, after being expelled from Spain. Here, he dedicated himself to writing the book that would summarize and explain Jewish law in order to ensure that even under the difficult circumstances Jews lived under, they could learn and master the Torah's instructions. In this synagogue, Rav Karo learned and taught and busied himself with finding food and shelter for the poor and needy of the town.
Aside from being one of the greatest scholars in all of Jewish history, Rabbi Joseph Karo was also known as a holy man, a man that studied with an angel. We have a book called Magid Meisharim, which purports to be Rabbi Joseph Karo's own diary, a memoir. And in it he records his conversations with this angel, and how he studied Torah with him, and how the angel kept on encouraging him to write the Shulchan Aruch, to be strong, because any time in Jewish life that there is an innovation, no matter who is the innovator, there always are naysayers. And there were people that said, who needs a Shulchan Aruch? And how come we existed until now without such a book? And the angel is the one who encourages Rabbi Joseph Karo to pursue his goal, to write the book, to disseminate it, to make certain that it reaches all the corners of the Jewish society. Rabbi Joseph Karo is also seen as the leader of the Jewish people in a very, very difficult time, at a time when the effects of the Spanish expulsion almost destroyed the Jewish people, at a time when the Jews are moving to Poland from France and from Germany, at a time of disquiet in the world. Rabbi Joseph Karo stood as a beacon of strength, loyalty to Torah, great scholarship, and vision for the people of Israel. The city of Tzfat is famous for its synagogues, most of them centuries old. Because of the holiness of the people and the holiness of the place, these synagogues acquired a special type of sensitivity for Jews, and therefore it was felt important to visit there and to pray there.
Tzfat has become a magnet for artists. Most of them live, work, and display their art here, in the artist colony. A unique art form developed in Tzfat, which is called Kabbalistic art. We met Abraham Lowenthal, a local artist, that explained to us a little about his work.
So one of the main ideas talked about in the Kabbalah is the idea of the purpose of creation and the idea of the fixing of creation. And it's explained in the Kabbalah that the only purpose of creation was to give everyone in the world, everything in the world, infinite goodness. Say the only purpose of creation was for everything to experience infinite goodness. So the whole big question is, what's going on? So it's explained that right now we're in a stage that's called the fixing of creation. in this stage all the goodness is hiddenness from the world, and that everyone is given in this stage a certain spiritual work to do. We say everyone has a spiritual work that only they can do in the world. We say the main spiritual work that we're all doing is we're working on changing our physical nature of only wanting to receive for the self into our spiritual nature, was a nature of unconditional love and pure giving. And we can see the ideas is represented here. We have in God's name, we have two letters He. We have Yud and He and Vav and He. The upper He is connected to our spiritual nature, which is the part inside of us which is pure giving. And the lower He is connected to our physical nature, which is the part inside of ourselves, which is only thinking of the self. And it's explained in the Kabbalah that our spiritual work is to bring the lower He to the upper He, which is to bring all of our thinking only of the self into the place of unconditional love, the place of truly realizing the other. And we sort of say the main idea, we say love your neighbor as yourself is the main idea. But we say even beyond that, it's the realization that our neighbor is ourself. We say we come to realize that really we're all one soul. What's really, really good for you is good for me, because we come to realize that we're all really one thing. And we can see in like this picture here, we have, in the center we have Ahava, which is love. And say the whole idea is for us to truly, truly come to realize the love underneath all of creation.
One of the things Tzfat is famous for in food is cheese. So let's have a taste. A long day of touring sure builds up an appetite. You can enjoy the fabulous cheeses made in Tzfat over freshly baked bread, dipped in Galilee olive oil, or melted in a delicious omelette with sizzling red pepper. If you ever visit Tzfat, this is one culinary experience you'll have to try.
Here in the area of Tzfat, we find the grave of one of the great men of the Talmud, Nachum Ish Gamzu. He was called Gam Zu Ish Gamzu. Gamzu is the name of a village, but the rabbis saw in it a deeper meaning. Gam Zu Letova. Whatever happened to Nachum Ish Gamzu in his life, he said, the Lord intends this for good. And that's a basic idea that reverberates throughout the Talmud. Kol ma'idi ovid rachmono letav ovid. Everything that comes from heaven has an element of good within it. Nachum Ish Gamzu was captured by the Romans. He was maimed. They amputated his limbs, his arms, and his legs. The Talmud tells us that he lay in a bed, the trunk of his body covered with bed sores. The students of Nachum Ish Gamzu came to move him to finer quarters. They brought the stretcher to put his trunk of his body and carry him out. He said to them, Al bonai, no my children, don't do that. Leave me in the house, because kol zman shani babayit ein abayit nofel. As long as I'm in the house won't collapse. You'll move me out and come back to take the furniture later. Who knows if there'll be a house? The rabbi saw in that the lesson regarding the Jewish people. As long as the spirit of Nachum Ish Gamzu is within us, our house will not collapse. If you take that out, if we're left spiritless, then who knows what the fate will be. And that's why Nachum Ish Gamzu is so representative of this holy city of Tzfat, because it represents the spirit, the eternal spirit of the Jewish people.
We will conclude our tour with a visit to the grave of Yonatan ben Uzziel in Amuka, located in a valley a bit north of the city of Tzfat. The scenic drive to Amuka takes about 15 minutes. Rabbi Yonatan ben Uzziel was one of the students of Hillel HaZaken, Hillel the Elder, in the time of the Mishnah, about 2,000 years ago. He is especially famous for his work, Targum Yonatan, an Aramaic translation of the Tanakh, the Bible. In his writings, Rabbi Yonatan stressed the special relationship between husband and wife. And legend has it, from heaven he helps single men and women find their soulmates. According to this legend, one who comes here to pray with devotion will have the good fortune of marrying within the year. And here we have reached the end of our majestic tour of Tzfat. Please join us again for another program of Planet Israel. Until then, Shalom!